Hi, my name is Isabella. I'm here with my grandma Irene. The date is December 8th, 2024, and we're recording this interview in Chicago, Illinois. So, my first question is, what was your favorite subject in school and why?
Math. I loved math. I loved solving problems. I loved algebra. I loved multiplication. I loved geometry. I loved all the math. I did very, very well. No matter how the harder the problem was, the easier it was to solve. If it was an easy problem, I had a hard time with it. So
Yeah.
my teachers always asked me, how could you figure out the complicated problems, but you had such a hard time with the easy ones? I didn't know. But the harder it was, the better it was for me to solve. I just loved math.
Mm-hmm. Who or what has been the biggest influence on your life and why?
Well, if could ever remember, I loved the Constitution of the United States. I loved us having our rights and being free and to express ourselves. And just the rules and the regulations that we as Americans had a right to enjoy, because that was something that as a child I remember that from the country I came from we didn't have those rights.
Mm-hmm.
So to me my greatest influence was the Constitution of the United States. But I could add Madame Curie, the one who invented x-rays.
Mm.
Her name was Irene Curie,
Oh,
and she was Polish.
I didn't know that. Can you tell me about a time in your life where you felt really proud of yourself and why?
Yes, I felt very proud of myself when the Speaker Madigan decided to pass a law in the state of Illinois that the local school councils would be elected by citizens of the community, and the council members would be elected by their community, and they would hold the positions of principal selection, selection of books, selection of programs. It was a great, great idea, and I was part of that movement. I was elected in 1989,
Mm-hmm.
and when my term was completely up, because I got reelected and reelected and reelected, and until my children left school, and I was the council president of HB Stove School.
Mm-hmm. And what made you kind of want to get into that?
Because when I was younger, the schools didn't represent parents. They didn't care about parents. We had no rights. No matter how much we complained, my parents' voices were not heard. The children were not heard. We were overcrowded. We had old books. It was a very, very bad environment of learning. So when my children went to school, I became a part of the program that promoted parent involvement.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe yourself as a child?
Very adventurous. I was a daredevil. I would take a sled in the wintertime and sit at the front of it and have my friends behind me and would go coasting down a hill to hit a pole to fall off because I thought that was fun. I would take my bicycle on top of a hill and drive it down as fast as I could just to miss the trucks. I was very, very, very wild child.
Okay, were you ever a caregiver to anyone in your life?
Yes, I was a caregiver to many people. I was a caregiver to my father who had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I took care of him while I was pregnant with my son. I took him to chemotherapy. I took him to radiation therapy. I gave him morphine injections. I took care of him until his death.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took care of my mother, whom was very ill, and I took care of her. I raised my sister, whom was a young child when my father died.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 21 when I became the caregiver of the family and the major support system because we were alone. There was no one else here to take care of us. So after that, I was a caregiver of my grandfather, who was elderly and needed to be taken care of. I needed an advocate. I took care of him. I took care of my husband, who was very, very ill I took care of him. I was an advocate for my sister who was very, very ill and supported her health insurance, her well being. Yeah, I took care of a lot of people.
Do you have any regrets in life or things you wish you would have done?
Yes, I wish I would have become an attorney. That
Mm-hmm.
was my biggest desire that I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love the Constitution so much. I wanted to be there as an advocate to help and support people. And that's the only thing is my regret that I didn't fulfill that dream.
Mm-hmm.
I'm too old to do it now. I'm not going to start.
And then I was gonna ask this earlier. Where did you grow up and where were you raised?
I was born in Odmuchów,
Mm-hmm.
Poland, in an area that I gave a map picture to your dad. And then the area I grew up with was on the border of Czechoslovakia and Poland. It was very, very intense with forestry and hills and just beautiful, beautiful scenery where I was the daredevil. I was out. My mother had to go hunting for me. I was always out in the woods. I was
Mm-hmm.
always by the creeks. I was everywhere that children shouldn't be, and I was there.
Okay, and then my last question: if you could relive any moment from your life, what would it be and why?
Mm, that's a very difficult question because my journey has been so long. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing I would do is because when we were younger, back in the day, they didn't offer assistance for college.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't offer assistance for schooling. Um, the counselors really, really were useless.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't assist children in finding their path and finding, their way. So it's really hard to say where I would go, what I regret, and what I would like to have done. I would have liked to become an attorney. That was my desire. I always wanted to be an attorney. I always wanted to be in politics.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the choices people make. I loved hearing people's voices. I loved hearing people's what they wanted to accomplish in their lives, how they wanted their communities to be. They're just the whole voices of the community and helping push what the community wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest regret that I didn't fulfill.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all my questions.